Welcome to Seacoast Stories, a podcast about the businesses, people, and newsmakers that make the Seacoast an American hidden gem. I'm Troy Farkas, and on today's episode, my conversation with Mackenzie Logan, the 31-year-old owner of Flamingos Coffee Bar, a popular yet controversial coffee shop with locations in Hampton and Exeter. Mackenzie Logan grew up in the restaurant industry. She started working in it at 14 years old at Canopy Lake Park in Salem. After that, she became a hostess at a quintessential New Hampshire restaurant, The Common Man. She worked her way up from calling out dishes to garnering them to delivering them. And as a senior in high school, she started preparing desserts, an experience she would later write her college essay about. She then attended the University of Vermont, where she studied English and political science. But she didn't last long there. Because she was making so much money from bartending in college, she didn't see a point in studying to get a quote-unquote real job. So she dropped out of school, moved back to Manchester, and continued bartending for 4 years until she burnt out. Then, after leaving the industry that raised her, Mackenzie recalled this feeling she had when she was a little girl. When she would peruse local markets with her mother, she would tug on her mom's sleeve, and Mackenzie assured her that she would have a cute small business of her own one day. So when Mackenzie came to a career crossroads, she recalled that dream of hers and decided then that she needed a business degree to lay the foundation for the next chapter. So she went to UNH and eventually earned her bachelor's degree at 25 years old, launching Mackenzie into a corporate career that, like her time at UVM, also came to an abrupt halt.
I majored in entrepreneurial studies within their business admin program. So I knew deep down that I wanted to start my own business one day. I think I was pretending that I didn't know what that was, but I know all my experiences in hospitality. At that point, though, I think I was getting a little bit burnt out from bartending. And I think it was mostly the late nights and whatnot. And I wanted to sort of find a way that I could stay in the industry of hospitality, but I couldn't really at the time see what that looked like or a solution to that. But I knew that if I got a degree in business, that could at least help me in the future, have a better foundation for what kind of business I would want to start or how to even do that, how to go about that. I loved the marketing side of things and the creative side of stuff. So out of college, I got marketing jobs and did that in corporate America for a few years, but that wasn't what was meant to be for me. And I think it always ended up going back to hospitality and missing sort of that in my life. And that's what I wanted to go back to.
What did you love so much about the hospitality industry?
That's a tough question. I think it's mostly about just connecting with people and providing something really special for someone who's looking for that. I think it's easy to forget that people are spending their time, their money to things that are so precious in life, especially right now. And they're spending that on something that is yours or that you're working at or you're building. And to sort of give someone, it's going to sound so cheesy, but that gift of yes, you're going to spend your time and money on this project, on me or whatever I'm doing. I want to make that the best time for you. I want to give you the best bang for your buck, I guess, if you will. I think that's really neat that you have the power to make or break someone's experience with just how you treat them and what services you offer, what goods you give them, etc. And it's really special when that person was oh, that was worth it. And they come back. There's not a better feeling than giving someone something that they paid for and then they want even more. That means that you're doing something right. And that's always really special to feel.
So you knew you wanted to start a business, but you didn't know what kind of business that you wanted to start. So when did you really start seriously thinking about, I want to have a business that's in the restaurant food deal? Yeah.
So I think I always told myself I would not open a restaurant. I was I don't want to live that life. I was I can't do it. The late nights, it's fine in your 20s. I don't think for me personally, it would be sustainable long term. And so I always just felt I will figure it out when it comes to me, and like wasn't pressuring myself too much. And then during COVID, I think we all had a lot of time to like sit back and reflect and think. I was working from home. There were days where I didn't leave my house. There were weeks when I didn't leave my house, and I hated it. And I just didn't like, I think corporate America can be great for some people. And I think that it can be dressed up really nicely when there's like a really cool office to go to located in a really cool part of a city, and you get all these great perks. But when all that's taken away and you're just sitting in your pajamas on your couch on your laptop for a year, I'm like, this isn't fun. This isn't fulfilling. This isn't what I want to do anymore. And I know I'm not the only person who felt that way. I just felt like trapped, and I needed to get out. And so my brain just started coming up with like different ideas on how I could achieve that, different businesses. And that's kind of how this was born.
Had COVID not happened and we weren't all sent home, do you think you would still be in that world?
I don't know. I don't think I'd be here, but I don't know if I would still be in that world.
Yeah.
I think COVID gave me like the push and like the bravery to be able to take a chance. It was just a weird time in everyone's life. I was like, are we going to be alive tomorrow?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, why not? So I think that was a sort of special circumstance that kind of propelled me forward with that decision. If COVID hadn't happened, I'm not sure if I would have taken that like leap of faith to leave a job that was secure.
Okay, so you explained why you wanted to start a business, and then we eventually land where we are now, Flamingos. You did not want to open a restaurant. This isn't a restaurant, but it's restaurant adjacent. It's in that world. So Flamingos Coffee Bar.
Yeah.
When does that really enter your mind as something that could happen?
It was just sort of, I'd never put pressure on myself to like establish something like you have to go do this right now. It was more like a belief that it would come when it was meant to be. And I don't even really think that way. I'm not a huge subscriber to like fate and all of that. I don't look at signs or astrology. I'm not like a huge believer in that kind of stuff. But I did have like a deep feeling ever since I was young that like I would create something that was a small business. I always loved going to the local butcher when I was little, or the local grocery store in my small town, Windham, New Hampshire, where I grew up. And like I remember going to a small bookstore or a clothing store and always just talking to my mom and being like, I want one of these one day. I want to be that woman over there who's like selling clothes, being like, yeah, this is great. Like I picked this out, picked that out. And there wasn't one thing I knew I wanted it to be. I just knew I wanted to own a small business. But when I first saw the space that is on Hampton Beach that I have, I was just exploring it with a friend, and the landlord was a friend. We were looking at it, and he was voicing how he thought it would be cool if a coffee shop went in there, but he didn't know anyone who could do that or would want to do that. And I was kind of joking, and I volunteered, and I was like, I'll do that. That sounds great. Like I can do that. And I think everyone just kind of laughed it off. And then the next day I texted him and I was like, hey, I really am interested in making this a coffee shop. I think I could do it. Like I have experience in hospitality. I can learn the rest. Like I'm committed. Like I think I want to do this. And then 5 days later, it was New Year's Eve and I signed the lease. And again, kind of played into that whole, like, there's a greater meaning behind this. I woke up the next day and it was like a new year, a new job, a new mission, a new life. And it did feel very serendipitous. There was a new panic attack. I was like, what did I just do? But it all worked out in the end. And I'm glad I kind of took that leap of faith. It just felt right in the moment. And again, I don't think I would ever tell people to take that advice and run with it exactly. It just worked out for me. And everyone has a different path when it comes to starting their own business.
Yeah.
Mine was not conventional, I would say. So I don't ever, tell people to like, go do it. Don't go risk it all for nothing. But I felt like I had enough of a background in business and hospitality that I could make something worthwhile. So I just had to believe in myself, I guess.
Now, adding to the unconventionality of this, most people start businesses in areas that they are very passionate about. Hospitality, yes, you had that down. But coffee, you weren't a big coffee drinker or coffee connoisseur at all. And then you open a coffee shop.
Yeah. I would say I was a decent coffee drinker. Like I would drink coffee. I would drink cold brew. That was like as far as my knowledge went. I never like thought much about it. I had worked with an espresso machine briefly at my bartending gigs because we'd make espresso martinis. So I knew the very basics of doing that. I didn't know the history or quite literally like anything else about opening a coffee shop. But I definitely just dove into learning everything I could about it. And again, I always tell people when they ask for advice, like, oh, I want to open my own shop one day. What's your number one piece of advice? And I always say, go work in a coffee shop first. I think that's the best way to learn. And I did learn from our roaster. They were kind enough to like give me a few shifts at their shop and to walk me through everything. I just listened to a million podcasts, read a ton of books. I explored coffee business owner Facebook pages, which are ironically like they are the best source of information I've ever gotten in the last 4 years. Whenever I have a question, I go to Facebook and there's at least a dozen owners across the country that are like chiming in with their answers. So I felt like I could learn the side of coffee. And I'm sure people who are coffee snobs or cafe owners of decades plus will listen to this and roll their eyes and be like, oh my God, that was so stupid of her. And like, I don't blame them. I think after 4 years, I've now learned enough about coffee where I was like, oh my God, did I really do that? That was dumb. But I surrounded myself with professionals and people who knew more than me. And I'm glad I did because I definitely needed that at the time.
So what exactly was the original vision that you had for Flamingos before you opened?
I guess the original vision is a lot of what it is now, which is just a fun, cool, unique place to enjoy a cup of coffee on the Seacoast. Originally is the Hampton location. It's 100 feet from the beach, right? So very like beach focused. Come in here for your cup of coffee. Traditionally, New England coffee shops can be like darker and there's more like surfboard vibes. And that's awesome too. I love those shops also. I didn't see anything that was more West Coast or Miami vibes with like vibrant and pink and like just something more, I guess, fun at the end of the day. And that was kind of the brand I was going for. I wanted people to come in here and like say like, oh, this is such a cool spot to hang out. This is fun. Like, I think that was at the end of the day, I wanted something vibrant, fun, community based. So I think that mission has always stayed the same. And then we really leaned into what our customers were requesting, which was like fun coffee flavors. So
I'm a coffee snob and one day I want to open my own coffee shop as well. So I'm wondering in those first few months, between signing that lease and Flamingos opening, what were some of the things that you learned about coffee that you never would have thought about?
I guess that it's more calculated and scientific and mathematical than I ever imagined. Just pulling the perfect shot includes grinding the perfect amount of beans and the amount of pressure has to be perfect. We weigh that and then we time that and then we taste test it. And there's just so much that goes into pulling the perfect shot and like calibrating your machine. And there's so much technicality behind great coffee that if I knew that going in, I probably would not have done it because I would have been like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. There's so much that goes into an amazing cup of coffee. So I definitely like learned on the fly. And I was lucky enough again to have a lot of support around me. My first manager had been a barista for years and she was a great resource. I did not put myself behind the espresso machine until I felt like I could master that properly and like provide good coffee. But it is a lot easier owning a business once you do know the technical side of things. So I'm confident that I could train anyone that I hire at this point to do all things coffee, which I didn't have that confidence like the first week I opened. I was learning with my staff. I remember we were all getting trained together. And I, again, look back on that. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I was standing next to like the barista that I just hired, both of us having no experience and someone else training us to open up a shop together. So that was a little wild. And we're lucky that it worked out the way it did.
Why Flamingos?
So the wallpaper came first, then the name. I could not.
Naturally.
Yeah. I could not think of a name for like On My Life. So I had a list of like a dozen names, right? And
what were some of the others?
I can't give away all my secrets. What if I want to start another one one day?
That's true.
I will say half of them were lyrics from a Taylor Swift song.
Oh no, not the Reputation coffee shop.
No, my brothers shot those ones down pretty quickly. But I think we made the right choice, or I made the right choice with the name. Ultimately, it stands out. It's different. And we do have flamingos on the wall. It's fun. I've never seen a flamingo. I never had an affinity for flamingos, but I loved the wallpaper and I had to choose a name. And I was just like, you know what? Flamingos. Let's do it.
There you go. It works. Well done. So the motto, support your local caffeine dealer. When did that come into play?
So that was something like very early on. I was doing all the weird things like scouring Reddit pages and Pinterest and Instagrams and like just collecting like weird phrases and stuff that people say around coffee. I won't lie, I didn't create that saying. I've definitely heard it before, like support your local insert whatever dealer. So I saw it online somewhere talking about a different kind of shop. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So on like my vision board, I always had support your local caffeine dealer underneath everything. I just like loved it. And then when we were doing the final touches on the Hampton Beach store, I just kind of was like, I want to lean into this. I was like, let's just blow up giant vinyl lettering and put support your local caffeine dealer in huge text right in front of the store. It's very like Hampton Beach. It'll catch people's eye. And yeah, I think it worked really, really well in Hampton. It definitely was like a great marketing tactic. People loved it, thought it was fun and catchy. I was a little trepidatious to bring it to Exeter. It's a different, it's a different market here. It's a different town. But again, I thought it aligned with what I had built for the brand so far. So I felt like I wanted to include it. I do like it. I did get an email from a PTA mom who said to stop promoting drugs near her child's school and that I should learn more about marketing. And I was like, oh no, did I do this wrong? But I also live in Exeter and I do know the town. And I felt like, I think it will not offend way more people than it will offend.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Mom, but something I learned about marketing a long time ago is that you have to do something weird, something that catches the attention. Even like it doesn't. Your superpower, Mackenzie, is that you don't necessarily have training in any of this. You don't know the right way to do things. You just do what feels good to you and what you want to do. Even though most people who are trained in marketing or trained in the hospitality industry might not advise you to make a lot of the decisions that you have, but they've worked. I feel like everything that I've seen, maybe there's been some things that you've totally swung and missed on, but you seem to be just hitting on everything.
That's kind of the story of my life, honestly. From like, even when I was a little kid playing soccer, I remember my coach being like, I don't know how you score so many goals because you're doing what I told you not to do. It's just funny. You reminded me of him right then. I was like, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes just happens.
That's pretty incredible. Okay. So Hampton location opens 2021. Yep. What is the initial reaction to when you guys finally open the doors?
So the first day we had a soft opening and it was friends and family only. Hard to do on Hampton Beach Memorial Day weekend. It was days leading up to it.
Soft opening.
Yeah. People kept sliding in the door and we're like, whatever, we'll let them. It was a great way to open up, I think, because we got all the kinks out of the way. We closed a few days after that to sort of gather our bearings. I also like passed out that day. I like literally physically passed out. My mom like brought me to my car and I had great staff who like finished that day for me. I remember my uncles calling me being like, where are you? You're not at your own soft opening. And I'm like, oh, I passed out in the car. It was just so overwhelming. And like, I had been not sleeping, right? Like working so hard. Coffee shop life, you're up at 5 a.m. anyway to get to the shop for like 5:45 or 6. I was waking up at like 3 a.m. because I was so full of adrenaline. And like, I just wasn't sleeping for like a week leading up to it. And then like that day I like got there, we like got the morning rush over with and I literally just passed out. And then a few days later, we got up and we did it again. It was insane. It was Memorial Day weekend, Hampton Beach. It was a crazy, crazy summer. I look back on that and now I was like 28 at the time. I don't think I'd be able to do that again. Like the amount of physical work that goes into it. It was really intense.
So the coffee flights, these are a big hit. They're a staple of Flamingos, and I'm sure just a big part of the overall success story. I've been to a lot of coffee shops around the world, and I've never seen something so fun and creative as that in a coffee shop. So I'm wondering, where did the inspiration for those come from?
Those started right after the end of summer. So that first summer was just survival mode. And if you know anything about Hampton Beach, you know that it's like tourist season, right? So we weren't getting repeat customers. We didn't have time to like focus on what I wanted to, which was like customer care and like hospitality. It was just sort of grinding out everything we could, figuring out operations, how to serve hundreds and hundreds of people a day. And these aren't returning customers, right? They're just there for the day or they're there for the week. The line like out the door, and we're just like pumping out lattes and cold brew, right? And didn't really have time to think about like, okay, what does our customer base want? Why do they come to us? At that time, it was, the height of COVID and people were escaping to the beach that summer and people saw coffee and they just wanted a coffee, right? And then we really started to work on things once the season came to an end. So September, October, we're starting to explore more things that we can try to get people in the shop now that it's the off season.
And were you serving food at this point as well?
Yeah, we were. Yeah. We'd also had served like fraps and smoothies those first 3 months, which we no longer do. I realized that we had to focus on a smaller segment of, I guess, offerings that we wanted to like make really high quality instead of trying to like get everything in there. The space is so small at Hampton. We just simply didn't have room for like a blender to do both smoothies and fraps and the freezer space, etc. And then I bought this board on Pinterest and I took like our 4 fun flavors that we had that week. And it was like a Nutella, a s'mores, I think a Snickers and the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I made a cute little like display of them, put whipped cream and toppings on it, posted a photo on Instagram. We didn't have a ton of followers at that point. And I was just like, hey, like this is our 4 specialty lattes we have right now. Like come check it out. I didn't even mean to advertise it as a flight. I thought it was a cute way to advertise our lattes. And then someone the next day came in and they're like, oh, I want that coffee flight. And I was like, oh, we don't. Okay, yeah, we can do that for you. I made up a price on the spot and I just whipped it up. And then the next day, 20 people came in and asked for it. And I was like, I don't have enough boards for this. And the weekend was about to come and like it had really just taken off online. So I went to Michael's, Home Depot. I got like any wooden fixture I could find and like a million little glasses and like just like the most, I don't know. The boards weren't looking great that weekend. They were very DIY, just anything we could get. At that point, we didn't have like our operations figured out either. We were like pulling these shots all at the same time and it backed us up. It was a learning curve we had to overcome. It probably took like a month, honestly, for us to really figure out how we were going to do this and like run smoothly. That first weekend, I remember because it was Halloween weekend that we like had advertised it. It's on our menu. We have all the boards in. We're fully stocked. We had to close the shop at noon because we sold out of literally everything from like bagels to beans. I had to drive to Bedford that night to go pick up more coffee beans that were roasted and bring them back. And like, we just kept on running out of stuff because it was so popular and we hadn't been that busy like ever. So it was a great problem to have, but it took us a few weeks to sort of adjust to that level, to that volume of customers and like that want that it created. And I definitely had staff walk out. I had people be like, I didn't sign up for this. This is crazy. There's a line out the door for these coffee flights. That's not real coffee. Like I've heard it all, right? And again, I think everyone should be a little more open to people's like tastes in food, coffee, etc. And to those people, I also say we have a full espresso bar. So we can make you the best cappuccino, cortado, anything that you want. And we also have, a Cinnamon Toast Crunch coffee if you want something sweet. So I don't think saying we don't have real coffee is a fair analysis of Flamingos. I think if there's something here for everyone is more accurate description. But yeah, it definitely sort of helped establish who we are as a business at that point. It was a huge turning point for us.
Now, to backtrack a little bit, the fun coffee flavors themselves, aside from Starbucks with their crazy, I've never had one of those things, but whatever it is they have that are like milkshakes, coffee.
Yeah.
I've never really seen too many local coffee shops do things like that. So what made you want to go down that route?
So to be honest, I took a hard look at Starbucks and I was just like, they are so successful. Everyone wants them. Everyone loves them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with like being inspired by Starbucks, right? And I think what we do can be construed as very similar to them, but I think that we do it with much higher quality. We do. Like at the end of the day,
more intention.
Exactly. And like our prices match pretty fairly with them. And we get complaints all the time about our pricing, as any small business owner can relate to, I'm sure. But people pay that at Starbucks without blinking an eye. But our beans are fresher. Our baristas are more talented. Like we know what we're doing here. We have fresher ingredients, there's just more care and training and intent and a lot that goes behind what we do as a coffee shop. But I think they do nail the nail on the head when Starbucks does come up with these like fun flavors, whether it be like just a seasonal flavor, like a Christmas cookie or a peppermint mocha or something like that. It's obvious that people want that, right? So I thought I would try a few of those flavors out to see how it worked, and people wanted them. And ever since we started doing it, it's all people come in and ask for. So we've just really hopped on that trend of like coming up with really fun flavors. And I've seen a ton of other coffee shops in the past few years really lean into that as well. So I think Starbucks does set a certain standard, and I don't think we look up to them because they're so great. I think coffee shop owners look to them because they are so big in this country that they really influence consumers' tastes in America. And I think a lot of people, they get their coffee taste curated by Starbucks, right? So it's not so much that like, we're doing this because Starbucks is doing it. We're doing this because Starbucks has created a culture where people really want this. And as long as people want fun coffee, we're gonna give it to them.
Wow. Okay. So we don't need to dig into your financials, but I feel like this has to be addressed for just the small business culture here in the Seacoast.
Sure.
Okay. So you start this, you rent on Hampton Beach.
Yeah.
You didn't own the building. Where was this money coming from?
Sure.
And then of course, all the startup costs, redecorating. I mean, coffee equipment is very expensive. So how are you funding this project?
Sure. So I poured in like every cent that I had into it. And then I also got a private investor as well. And I just sort of set terms of like, this is how much I need after a lot of research to like start this off. And again, like, thank God that Hampton Beach is what it is. I literally had it paid off that first year because Hampton is just so busy. It was so crazy. We turned a profit the first year, which is like unheard of in a coffee shop. So we really got really lucky. And I was fortunate enough to open Exeter with our own money. So I bootstrapped Exeter as well.
Right. So I've never worked in this industry, so I have no concept of profit margins and whatnot, but you see the turnover in the restaurant industry. It's very hard to, especially on the Seacoast, it's very hard to keep something sustainable. And then furthermore, in the coffee shop realm, I imagine those profits are even lower just because the cost that consumers pay just isn't that much generally. So after that first summer, did you start thinking like, okay, we may actually have a real sustainable business here because of where we are and because the different things that we're doing, and we may actually be able to buck that the statistics about coffee shops not sticking around too long?
Yeah, totally. I mean, people say that to me all the time. They say it about the Exeter location a lot. I can't tell you how many times people have been like, oh, you know that location is cursed, right? The turnover here. I'm like, thank you very much.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that about so many Seacoast spots.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just other very spot. Like there's a spot where Litherman's Brewing in downtown Portsmouth is. That place is cursed. There's a bunch of cursed places on the Seacoast. I feel like I'm good company now. That's great. Like, I'm glad to know I'm not the only cursed one. To that, I think that it's true. It's the first 5 years, they say, right, shows if you're going to be successful or not. That most restaurants don't last 5 years or longer. And that once you hit that 5-year mark, that's when you can feel safe, right? I don't know if anyone's ever really safe in business, but, and I think that that's a good benchmark because I think you need to, even if you have a successful first year, I don't think you should ever feel comfortable and be like, oh, I did it. Like, whew, I'm a success. I'm done. Like, I'm going to enjoy it now. You have to keep on adapting, learning, recreating, growing. And that's something I think I was lucky enough to learn early on, that you just need to keep on evolving with your customers, with the current climate. People's tastes and trends are always changing. And like, I don't think Flamingos will always be like a stagnant, like you come here and get this. That's why we change our menu every 4 weeks. We change our flight every month. We try to stay on top of like what people want. We try to give them something new and interesting while also keeping consistency in terms of like quality and uniqueness. But yeah, I also forget the original question again. Sorry. You're totally fine.
I think I might have answered it.
You did. Now, why did you open the Exeter location in 2023?
Kind of going off what we did just talk about is I've always had people in my ear being like, oh, success in coffee comes in numbers, right? You're never going to be successful from just one store. And I've kind of always had that in the back of my mind. Like you mentioned, it can be a lower profit margin in the business. And I talked to other cafe owners who did agree, like, yes, once you grow your cafe numbers, of course, profit is better. It's better to make a living off of, right? It's more sustainable for you as a human being, like long-term to live off of this, is to grow your business. So that was always in my mind for me. Like that was what I wanted to do. Again, it kind of similar to the first location. I was not in a rush to do it. I wasn't pressuring myself to do it at any certain time. And I knew that if it came along, I would say yes to it. And I've looked at dozens of places over the last 4 years. People will reach out and be like, hey, do you want to come look at this place? I'll always say yes. And I'll always take a look at it. But if it's not the perfect location, then it's just an absolute automatic no. And this was the first time that I had toured a spot that I had previously had my eye on. I loved this location. I've loved it for years. All the previous businesses that have been here, I've loved. I love this location in Exeter. I live in Exeter. I think it's great. And I was lucky enough to be the first one to look at it when the previous owner was ready to find someone to take over their lease. And I knew it was right. And then talking to the landlord, everything fit, the numbers fit. And I was like, yes, this is going to happen now.
What makes this location perfect?
I guess that is sort of, in the eye of the beholder. I think it's subjective for sure. I think it's perfect because I love Exeter. Like I think Exeter is perfect. And it's right next to the train station. It's located on Lincoln Street. There's 2 schools. It's walkable to Phillips Exeter, which is the boarding school in town. It's walkable from a lot of different
walkable to downtown Exeter.
Correct. Thank you. Yeah. So I love that about it. And there's a ton of parking, which is really cool. Hampton, there is just no parking anywhere in the summertime. So it's nice to have a place where I can say, yes, there is parking out back instead of being yelled at from someone who can't find a parking spot on the beach in July.
When you opened Exeter, what lessons did you take with you from opening the first location in Hampton that you took to opening in Exeter?
That's a good question.
Or mistakes to not make the second time around?
Yeah, totally. I think building a solid team, that was a huge lesson that I've learned as a business owner in 4 years. And honestly, I think team building has been the biggest challenge that I didn't anticipate when investing in planning out Flamingos. It's working with people can be difficult. You have to find a really good team and you can't just hire anybody. And I think that was definitely a lesson I learned early on, right? It's more than just a resume and an application and okay, your hours fit the hours we need. Great. You're hired. There's so much more that needs to go into the hiring process than that. And I think that was the number one takeaway I had. And now we really hire people with a lot of intent, and it has to be a good fit with the team and someone with shared visions. And yeah, I think that was the biggest lesson is don't hire just anybody. Hire someone who's a really good fit for your team, who's going to benefit from working here, and you're going to benefit from having them work here. So that was probably the biggest lesson that I had learned in Hampton.
When something like this is your baby, you had always wanted to open up a business and then you put all of your money into this. Mm-hmm. How do you manage being too hands-on and trusting the people that you've hired just to do their thing without you having to watch over their shoulders?
I mean, that's an amazing question. And honestly, the answer to that is by taking a step back and having trust in your staff. And even if that means that it's not going to be done 100% the way you would want to do it, it's allowing people to make their own mistakes and then, helping them when they need it, correcting them when needed. But being too hands-on is possible. And that doesn't mean you don't care about your business or that you're okay with it failing or something bad happening. I'm never going to be okay with someone being served something bad, right? I want everything that comes from us to be perfect. I want every drink served to be amazing. I just mean in terms of you don't want to be breathing down the neck of your staff. They need to feel empowered. They need to feel that they are trusted. And I think you give that to them by sometimes just not being present all the time, not people don't want to feel like they're being watched at work. And I think it's worked really well. I have some great staff retention right now. All of my shift leads, for the most part, have been here for years. And I think that speaks volumes. And with, any service industry job, there will be a certain amount of turnover. That's just how it works. There's a lot of college staff. They come in for a few seasons, then they graduate and they move on to something else. And that's always to be expected. But I think we have a really core team. I do have staff who have been here since literally the day we opened, and others for years. So I think just building a team that is trustworthy and always touching base and creating moments where we can bond and communicate is really important.
Coming up, Mackenzie tells the origin story of disgustingly pro women, how and why she gives back extensively to the community, and she even customizes a latte flavor for me. But first, if you're new to the podcast, it would mean the world to me if you press the follow button on Apple or Spotify. That way, you'll get all the newest episodes straight to your phone every Monday. I've got big plans for the future of this show, and to build it into something that brings people together, that inspires community like Mackenzie does at Flamingos, we need as many people to know about the show as possible. Thank you so much in advance for following the show and for being here today. I really appreciate it. Now back to today's story. We're both wearing our disgustingly pro-women t-shirts. Mackenzie, for those who do not know, can you tell us the story behind disgustingly pro-women?
Yes, absolutely. It's not a political statement, as a lot seem to think. It all stemmed from a Yelp review that we received this past year from a man who said that he felt extremely unwelcome in our store because there were too many women and it was too pink and it was disgustingly pro-women and that he probably wouldn't return. So I got that notification on my phone. I actually turn off my Yelp and Google review notifications when I'm away because I can't tell you how much it can ruin a day when I'm like sitting on the beach with my friends or family and I'm having a great time. I have like a drink in my hand and I look down and someone is like, your coffee sucks. And I'm like, and then, like I'll have like my fiance being like, why are you in a bad mood all of a sudden? I'm like, someone just told me I sucked online. Like, I'm sorry. Like it's hurtful. Like any small business owner.
Don't get into podcasting.
Yeah. You probably read them too. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. They're not nice. And like, I don't know how celebrities do it because like it'll happen, now and then and I'll get it. And I'm like, oh man, that's so rough. Like people are brutal online. Ironically, I've never had anyone say anything like that to my face while I'm here.
How about that?
Just crazy. I welcome them to. I honestly want to be like, can you please come back and say that to me? We can talk about it. You have strong feelings about me and I'd love to hear them. But anyways, I was actually, I was at the beach with my friends and it came in the form of an email as well, the notification, and I was checking my email and I read it out loud to my friends and I was like, this is a new one. And we all luckily like just started hysterically laughing. And I'm like, yeah, this is insane. Like,
right.
Obviously not going to take serious criticism or like constructive criticism from this guy. And I just joked. I was like, that's a great tagline. Like we should put that on a t-shirt. And one of my friends was like, no, seriously, we should put that on a t-shirt. And he was like, just put it up on Instagram and like see if anyone would buy it. So as a joke, I like screenshot the review. I blurred out the guy's name. I didn't want him to get like attacked or anything. So we put it online and then like we took a poll, like, would you buy this as a t-shirt? And we had like over 3,000 responses that said yes.
Wow.
And yeah, I had never seen my Instagram blow up the way it did. I had hundreds of DMs. I have never received hundreds of DMs. Like it just really like elicited this really strong reaction from women and men alike. People just resonated with, I guess, maybe like kind of an anger towards that. Like that is so ridiculous. Like you have a pink space because it's named after flamingos. It's an inclusive space. There's a pride flag out front. It's so crazy how someone can take to the internet, give you a bad review and say you're disgusting because you're pro-woman. So it was just sort of like a knee-jerk reaction. It kind of made a lot of women have, I think. So then, we put it on a t-shirt and then we started selling them. And we said that we would donate 20% of the profits to Women Aid, which is a local nonprofit in Exeter here. And I think that also helped people be like, oh, great, like I can buy this t-shirt and help a good cause. I really liked doing that because to me, it felt like we really changed the narrative and like kind of like, fuck you to that guy and be like, oh, you said something really mean. But then now we donated $6,000 to Women Aid. So he like initiated that. So like, good for you, dude. Hope he's happy about that.
Do you know who this guy is?
So I found him on Facebook.
Good sleuthing.
Yeah, he did remove his review. So you can't.
It's not there anymore?
No, you can no longer find it. I think other people also did what I did and found him on Facebook.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything with his information. I was curious, right? I was like, who is this guy? And I looked him up and then I did blur his name out, but you could have gone to Yelp, also did what I did, found his name, found him. I imagine that some people did that and he took his review down because he was like, well, I didn't actually want to say that in public. Like,
of course. Have you contacted him at all?
Oh, no.
Have you invited him to the shop? Come swing by?
I did. There was a newsstand station that came by, or a radio station. And they were like, do you have anything to say to him? And I was like, yeah, he can come by and get a free t-shirt anytime he wants.
I love that. That's brilliant. That's just another brilliant piece of marketing on your part. And to do it,
Thanks.
And to donate 20% of the profits is truly incredible. The flooding of the DMs, you said there were a lot of people who were just outraged by what the guy said.
Yeah.
Were some of those DMs also doubling down on what he said? I'm just curious.
Luckily, not a ton. Only a few, which was surprising because that review was not the first of its kind, certainly. I've gotten some pretty hateful stuff over the years, which again, I think any small business can relate to based on like anything that you market or even who your staff can be. And I've had people say vicious things about me, vicious things about my staff that are really uncalled for. So I was prepared mentally for that. And that's why I actually almost didn't do it, because I was like, I don't want to open this can of worms where people suddenly attack. It was election season as well. I was really worried about that. I didn't want to make a huge political statement. At the end of the day, I do want to remain like a community-based business where we're open to everyone of any beliefs coming in here, as long as they are kind and not judging and, being kind to others around them. I never really saw myself as like becoming political. I think people can interpret the t-shirts any way that they want to, and people have had some things to say for sure that aren't great. But 95% of the reaction was positive. And I think it was a net positive all around. So,
and when people do say that they don't like what you're doing here, what do you come back to them with?
I tell them they're more than welcome to not come in, and that's all they have to do. I've had people say really hurtful things about even just like our pride flag out front. And I encourage those people to never come back here. So
these sales, I mean, I know just from anecdotally, high demand. Everyone wanted a disgustingly pro-women t-shirt.
I know.
And you guys sold out pre-order pretty quickly, right?
We did.
These were flying off the shelves.
Yeah. My guy up north, Mad Cow in Ossipee, he's our merch guy. He's great. We're buddies now. I'm like, hey, I need like another 500. I originally ordered 200. I called him the next day and I was like, can you double that? I called him the next day and I was like, wait, triple it. And then a week later, I was like, I need 1,000. And we sold over 2,000 at this point. And he's great.
Coffee flight all over again. Wow.
Yeah, it was. It's funny. Yeah. But it was great. Yeah. People really resonated with the new slogan. So
yeah. I was just going to ask you, is this just a flash in the pan, a temporary thing, or is this going to be a part of Flamingos going forward?
That's hard to say. I think as long as there's a demand for it, like I still get emails every day asking for the t-shirts. We had since taken them offline. I physically didn't have like enough strength left in me to package more shirts to go around the holiday season. We were just too busy. So I did pause online ordering. The shops were fully stocked though. So I do still get emails every day asking for them. So I think we'll just keep them on hand until the demand diminishes. But I think people visiting for the first time, they see the t-shirts and they're like, oh, what does that mean? That's cool. So we have since framed the review and hung them in both shops. So
that's amazing.
My baristas don't have to tell the story every time. Okay, it's based off of a review.
Well, that's incredible. So 20% of the proceeds to Women Aid. This is not the first time that you at Flamingos have done something charitable. You've worked with, and is it Kiwanis? Kiwanis.
Yes.
You've worked with Kiwanis. You've worked with various local sports teams. You've donated a lot of money through the years to a lot of different Seacoast organizations. Why is this a value of Flamingos?
I think because part of my original mission was, going back to when I said when I was like a little girl in these small shops, I think I loved the idea of like also supporting the local community. I grew up playing soccer. I always wanted to be that business on the back of someone's jersey. And I always just thought it was so cool that all these small shops in town like congregate and donate their money to like go to these like sports teams or other charities. And I think it's a really great way to like show that you're a part of the community and to support the community in general. And it was always just an important part of my mission to be able to give back in any capacity that we could.
Now, going back to the financials of the business and whatnot, if you're giving away a lot of money as well, that's ultimately probably coming out of your pocket as well. And you need to put food on the table, and you're getting married soon as well. And weddings are expensive. So how do you make sure that you're you're upholding the value of being the shop on the 8-year-old's baseball jersey, but also still keeping a roof over your head.
That's also a great question. And it's initiated a lot of hard conversations that I've had to have with people because funnily enough, whenever I do run a charity event here, it just prompts a lot of organizations to ask for the same to be done for them as well. And it is really, really hard to say no.
Yeah.
Because of course we all want to help everyone, but like you just said, like it is my business, it's my income. And every time we do that, we profit less. And it's not always about profits, but you also have to be smart with your money. You can't say yes to everyone. So I set a quarterly charity budget every year that I'm like, okay, we're not going to exceed this. Obviously, what was unique about the t-shirts is that was just additional income, right? We were creating these t-shirts and I wouldn't have had that income anyway. And I was like, this is a great thing we can do to like donate 20% to a local charity. So to me, that didn't feel like I was personally going to lose a lot out of that. I thought it was a great way to like give back. I think a lot of the times what we try to do is encourage people to also donate as well. So we have run flights before where we're like, okay, this is a Camp Lincoln flight. $5 from every flight that we sell is going to go benefit Camp Lincoln, give scholarships to kids, etc. And we hope that advertisement drives people in to buy flights that weekend. So not only does it give us more business, it donates more money to them. So we try to frame it as like a win-win situation where we get more business to profit off of. We also encourage more people to donate while they're here. We take direct donations and we'll give it to whatever charity we're working with. So we try to do it in a business savvy way where we're also creating business for ourselves, but also giving back when we can.
You said you struggle with saying no. How do you determine what you say yes and no to?
Like I said, I try to do it at the beginning of the quarter. So I have in my mind, like, this is what I want. And honestly, at this point, it's just with organizations we've worked with in the past who are like near and dear to me. We work with Connor's Climb Foundation, and I think they have a really great mission for preventing teen suicide, essentially, and mental health struggles. And I just think that's a really important organization on the Seacoast. I love what they do. It's mostly just stuff that like I really like and I've always admired in the past. And Seacoast outright, that's always been a favorite organization of mine that work with a lot of LGBTQ youth. And we do that every Pride Month. We'll donate a certain amount. We have Pride sprinkles. So you just add those to your drink for $2 and then we donate all of that at the end of the month to them. And again, we advertise that and people come in because they want the Pride sprinkles. They want to take a photo with it. They tag Seacoast outright. And it's also about spreading awareness too, right? People learn what Seacoast outright is if they didn't before, because we'll have in a flyer at our register and people will be like, oh, what is this? And so we just kind of stick with organizations that we've worked with in the past at this point. And I know have a great mission and like I know have stood the test of time. And that being said, if someone comes in and they're like, oh, can you donate to this soccer team or something? I'm kind of a sucker for that. So I'm like, sure. But it is really hard to say no to people. Yeah.
Yeah. It's clear that supporting local is very important to you. You said that even when you were growing up, you were just all about that. Why is that something that is still so important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can probably relate to this, like with this podcast that you've started, like it's clearly important to you too, right? Like you're finding these cool stories and finding cool businesses on the Seacoast, and that in itself, like this podcast is supporting local. And I think there's just something really enriching with that and like uplifting the local community in that way. And I've always just wanted to support local. We try to incorporate as much as possible here with having like local bakers, and we get all our baked goods from different local bakeries, including like our bagels and then donuts and muffins, etc. Our beans are local. We try as much as we can.
Flight Coffee, right?
Yeah, Flight Coffee. They're out of Bedford. They're awesome. But yeah, we try to support local as much as possible. I think it's really important in a small community like what we have on the Seacoast here to do that, so we can all continue to thrive here. So
yeah, for me, it's just people like yourself. It takes so much guts, putting all your money, putting all your time, effort, and energy, waking up at 3 a.m. the week that your business is going to start. It takes so much personal sacrifice, so many sleepless nights to operate places like this. And everyone has a different story to tell, and they're all so inspiring. And yeah. I hear someone's story. I have to support you. I have to keep you around it. Like I'm so inspired by people like you.
Well, that's cool. And that's, I think, everyone's hope, right? Is like you support them, they support you. And like,
it is important to,
yeah, because it is, they need, all small businesses need the community support in order to stay in business. That's just a fact. And it's sad and scary to see a lot of places close down. And I hope that we can sort of invest more in local going forward as a community.
Is there going to be a third location anytime soon?
Anytime soon. That is TBD.
Okay. Well, Seacoast Stories better get the scoop when that happens.
Yes.
What are the big plans? We are in the new year. What are the big plans for 2025 for Flamingos? What are there any things that you want to have on your menu that you haven't had before? Are there, I know you have the coffee cart as well.
Oh yeah.
There's what else is Flamingos trying to get into in 25?
I think right now a big vision or a big goal of mine is to have the coffee cart take off. We didn't finish building it until like the summertime this past year. So we didn't really get on top of like, getting it ready for weddings, etc. We only were able to do one wedding, but our hope is to just get people who really want it.
And what is the coffee cart?
The coffee cart is, I guess what you would imagine. It is a cart and it's on wheels. It's pink. It serves our lattes. And it's iced lattes only. We have it hooked up to a keg. We just pull it, make it on the spot, ice it. We've been doing small menus of like our top 4 flavors on it. So we bring like the fun flavors from our flights to you. It's been great. We've done a couple corporate events, a couple weddings. It's just a really fun way to like caffeinate a group of people, add a splash of fun to it. We have fun stickers and we can customize them as well. Yeah, we're just trying to like bring Flamingos to parties and events. Yeah.
Very cool. What's the mile radius that how far can this go?
I will travel wherever right now.
Wow,
yeah.
Love to hear that.
I won't say no. We went to a wedding that was, I think, it was like 2.5 hours away.
Oh, wow.
This summer. Yeah, I love New England. I'm down to travel anywhere with it. It's just me doing it right now. And my fiance, the two of us man it together. It's for our wedding fund. That's what we call it. We're like, nice. Oh, the wedding fund is growing.
Will it be at your wedding?
It will be. It'll be serving special that night, though. I think we're going to hook up an espresso martini keg.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we can't offer that to everyone.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Another thing I want to talk to you about. We've mentioned a lot the marketing, but specifically social media. Flamingo, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'm not just saying this because you're in front of me right now. I think you guys have the best social media game of any Seacoast business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is so kind. I don't know if that's true.
You're the one running it, right? It's just you.
I am. Yeah, it is just me.
Wow.
Thank you. That's really kind.
I mean, Flamingos is tailor-made for Instagram. The flights, tailor-made for it. The baked goods and the coffee cart Hampton Beach location. I mean, it's just it just hits everything. Like, do you have you probably don't even have a social media strategy because it still feels like you're making everything up on the fly, but your instinct is so good.
Thank you. That's really sweet. I don't know if it's all true, but that's very sweet. Yeah, I think one of the most like heard phrases around here from me is like, oh, is it Instagrammable? Like, let's make it Instagrammable. And again, as soon as people aren't looking for that or people don't react to that, we'll pivot perhaps. But like 4 years later, people love to get something that is Instagrammable. People love to take a picture of something really cool, looks really cool, tastes really cool, and put on their Instagram. And we really just like feed into that. So we like to create stuff that is visually appealing as well as like tasty and like post it on our Instagram and have like really unique things that catch people's eye. And it has worked for us so far and people respond so well to it. And I feel really lucky that people react that way to like our Instagram posts. So that's really touching and it's cool. I have a ton of fun with it. And like, it's funny you say that because I'm always like, oh, I'm not doing enough. Like I need to be better. Like I have my inspo accounts that I follow and I'm like, why can't I be more like them? And so it's funny. It's still, I'm still learning and growing and, always trying to be better with the social media aspect side of things. But that's nice to know there's someone who thinks I'm doing it right.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm in awe of it. I mean, social media is something I struggle with this because I get a lot of messages from a lot of people, listeners to the show, just a lot of interaction and engagement. Again, good problem to have, but
yeah,
it never stops. It's 24/7. I fall victim to checking it way too much. Yeah. And I'm sure you as a business owner, because people might message the account about something, store hours, holiday hours, whatever. Yeah. Product demands, people hating on disgustingly pro women. How do you just kind of shut that off and just focus on running the coffee business part of it rather than, again, you are the sole social media person, but that is an essential part of the business. So how do you make sure that you balance your time accordingly?
Yeah, it's hard. I am still working on that. It's actually like one of my New Year's resolutions is to be better about what to respond to and what not to. There's just so many messages and comments, and it can be overwhelming, and it can take a lot to like respond to them all. And I need to be better about like my emails. Like I feel like we get an influx of communication that I need to have a better handle on at times. That is a New Year's goal of mine, but it's hard to block out the Instagram noise, right? I don't want to spend too much of my time on Instagram either, just like mental health wise, right? Like as an anxious person, I don't want to be glued to my phone or my Instagram, like my personal or my professional one. So it's hard to like have to be on it for business. And the more I'm on it, the more I can see what other people are doing and get inspired by it also. So like it is an important thing to be on it so I can see what other coffee shops are doing, what other even like small businesses, how they're marketing things, et cetera. It's important to like stay in touch, be in the know, have your finger on the pulse. But there's a balance that I have to achieve between like, yes, having that, but also like not overexposing myself to social media and like, being obsessed with it and stuff like that. I need to put my phone down sometimes.
Now, something that hasn't come up at all in this conversation is you have celiac disease.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy considering the place that you run is probably not great for those with celiac disease.
So we actually are extremely allergy friendly. I guess we didn't talk about this. Okay. We take like severe precautions for everyone with food allergies. We offer everything gluten-free. And everything that we have in our drinks is gluten-free and can be made dairy-free as well. We use oat milk by default. We do have cow's milk on hand if people want to substitute, but all our drinks are automatically made with oat milk. So they are, for the most part, vegan as well. Our sauces, like our chocolate sauce, can contain traces of milk in it. However, we can use syrup to substitute it. So pretty much all of our drinks can be made vegan as well as gluten-free. We have gluten-free bagels. All of our muffins are gluten-free as well. And then it's up to the person, the celiac, like myself, if they feel comfortable enough. I will say when we have gluten allergies, we switch all utensils, we switch cutting boards, switch gloves, marked as an allergy. So our staff is trained like crazy on how to handle food allergies. And there is a notice on the register that says this, but like, of course, it's a small space. We are handling bread in other parts of the kitchen. So there's always a chance that it's like in the air. And that's just up to the consumer, whether or not they're comfortable with consuming that. And I have celiac. I eat here all the time and I'm fine. We just take tremendous care with allergies. But yeah, we try to be able to be a comfortable spot for everyone. Yeah,
that's interesting. It's almost like your weakness is your superpower in a way because you are so in tune with that disease and other people, their concerns or what they might need. So that's actually really cool.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's kind of selfish. I just wanted to eat at work. So I was like, we need gluten-free in here.
Now, admittedly, Mackenzie, in season 1 of this podcast, I made the promise to myself that whenever I interview someone, I need to have partaken in their experience, whatever product service they offer. I need to have done that because it will better inform the conversation. Now, I've been to Flamingos several times, but I've only gotten black coffees and just boring things. I've never gotten any of the fun things. I want to so badly, but I said type 1 diabetic.
Right.
I'm afraid.
Of course.
Mackenzie, is there anything I can have that is fun that won't spike my blood sugar like crazy?
So we have some sugar-free flavors.
Okay, tell me more.
Is that helpful for you?
Tell me more. Go on.
Okay, because we could make you something that is sugar-free. And then I think that I would imagine almond milk probably has the least amount of sugar in
it. Yep.
I know we have customers that are diabetic and they often opt for sugar-free almond milk lattes. So we definitely cater to them when they need to. And we do have sugar-free flavors. So we could probably make you something fun with that. Okay. I'm thinking of the flavors that we have.
Okay, I like caramel things.
We have a sugar-free caramel.
Cinnamon things.
Okay, we can do that.
Strawberry. I don't know. I've never had a fun coffee before. I don't even know what's normal.
Well, now it's my mission to make you one.
Okay, yes. Please customize a type 1 diabetic friendly latte for me.
Do you like
I've
fruit
never had a latte
in your
before.
coffee? Oh, you haven't?
No.
So you don't even know if you would like fruit in your coffee?
No. Is that a thing?
Yeah, so it's definitely a thing. People either hate it or they love it.
Okay.
So we do have coffees that will have like a strawberry flavor. Like we've had a strawberry shortcake. So some people love a fruit forward coffee. Some people hate it. And like if they're going to do something fun, they want it to be like mocha or chocolatey or caramel, stuff like that. But yeah, it depends on like do you like fruit in real life?
Oh, I love fruit. I'm a fruit fiend.
Okay. I think we could make you something fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We need a Troy.
A Troy coffee.
Troy coffee flight.
We have only ever named one coffee after someone, and his name is Jim, and it's called the Jimbo Americano.
Okay.
Because he would come into Hampton every single day and order it twice a day. He'd come in the morning and in the afternoon. And I'm sorry, Jim, if I'm blowing up your spot right now, but he would get an Americano with 8 shots in it.
Jesus, Jimbo.
And he would get it twice a day.
Oh my God.
And we would bring it in and it would be like espresso, 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 espresso. So we just like ended up calling it the Jimbo Americano, and then it made its way to the menu.
How much did that cost?
Oh, I can't. I don't want to blow up his spot even more.
Dang, Jim.
He was our number one customer.
Okay, well, speaking to that, so you told me that you would think in this disgustingly pro-women place that your consumer base would be mostly women. It looks very feminine on the inside, but actually it's much more split down the middle, male to female, right?
It is, yeah. I can't say that I noticed that more women come in here than men, honestly. And when it comes to regulars, it's definitely very even. I think we have just as many men as regulars. I will say when it comes to the weekends, we get more of the people visiting from out of state to try a coffee flight or out of town. And it's actually really touching when people come in. They're like, hey, we just drove 2 hours for your coffee flight. And we're like, okay, guys, give them the best coffee ever.
Oh, wow.
And I would say at that point, there's a specific demographic that we're reaching, and that's probably women aged 18 to 35 at that point. But I would say on like a regular weekly basis, our regulars who frequent our shop, pretty even, male and female, I think.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think men are drawn to this place too?
Because I think good coffee is good coffee, and people don't care if there's pink on the walls. If you're a real man. No,
oh, wow. Real men wear pink. That's right.
But yeah, I think there's something maybe wrong with someone if they're scared to try a place because they think it might have like too much pink in it. And at the same time, I don't even think we're overwhelmingly feminine. I will say that the wallpaper is pink because it has flamingos on it, and like floral designs. But I think it's just more of like a fun, unique vibe that's like vibrant. It was never intended to like ostracize any genders by any means. And I think as a team here, we're so welcoming and open and like kind. That's a huge deal for me to make sure my team is like just open and kind to everyone. And again, that's why we're so picky when it comes to hiring, is it needs to be a good fit. We need people who are hospitable, and we want people to like have that energy that gives off a welcoming nature. So I think that if anyone says that we're exclusive to anyone, I don't think that's true.
Mackenzie, we have one final question, and I thank you so much for joining me today. We ask this same final question at the end of every episode, every week. And I know you've listened to the show before. The season 1 question is no longer, so we have the season 2 question. So if you prepared a season 1 question or answer, I'm sorry. So season 2 question is, knowing what you know now about how things have turned out for you, what advice would you give your 22-year-old self?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I would probably tell my 22-year-old self to, this is ironic because she wouldn't listen, but to stop worrying so much. I feel like at that age, you're so worried about what comes next. What is your life going to look like? You're just like full of like panic and dread about the future. Like, what am I doing with my life? Typically at that age, you're either like graduating college, entering a entry-level job somewhere probably, and it's probably something that isn't glamorous, and you're scared and you're like, is this what I'm signing up for the rest of my life? And I think kids should not put that much pressure on themselves at that age also. And it's going to sound so lame, but like follow your heart a little bit more. I think just stop worrying so much about the future. I think so many kids or young adults just obsess about what their future looks like, and maybe focusing more on what makes you happy in the moment and trying to do that instead of obsessing over the future.
That's Mackenzie Logan, the founder and owner of Flamingos Coffee Bar in Hampton and Exeter. Give them a follow on Instagram at Flamingos Coffee Bar for beautiful coffee flight pictures, or book their coffee cart for your next event by visiting the link in the show notes. I'm still out of town. I'm actually in Seattle, visiting the city I was born in. So I hope you're all enjoying Seacoast things while I'm gone, like strolling the picturesque streets of Newcastle, Portsmouth, or Ogunquit, or maybe enjoying some winter activities at Strawberry Bank. As for next week's episode with the owner of Flight House Gym, here's a sneak peek.
Don't change a goddamn thing. Just keep being you, keep moving forward. Go through all this shit. Go through every bit of it that landed on your plate, that fell on your head. Just absorb it, learn from it, and move on.
That's next week on Seacoast Stories. Until then, thanks for listening. Have a great week. Live free or die.